Hello dear friends, this is your personal English coach Divyam here, and in this video we'll be understanding an interesting poem called Crossing the Bar. This is written by a British poet called Lord Alfred Tennyson. Why did he write this poem at the first place? Well, he wrote this poem when he was 80 years old. He was down with severe illness and it seemed as if he will not recover. But 3 years after that, he did recover, and in the meanwhile, it made him think about his own life and death and many other thoughts around it. So metaphorically, he has penned down these lines. As you can see on my screen, the original poem is on the left side with meanings of difficult words not only in bold but on the right side, well explained. So let's begin with the poem. Let's stick to the first 2 lines. Sunset and evening star and one clear call for me. So the poet begins with describing the background and the atmosphere. So sun has already set and evening star has started appearing, which means the end of day is near, right? So which is the evening star, can you tell me? It is Venus. It is none other than Venus. So Venus has started appearing. This is the brightest star that we can see from the earth that's visible, and sun has already set, and one clear call for me. Now at this point we really do not know what is the call for, but it's very clear that somebody is calling the speaker, the poet, and that is a call which he cannot avoid. So we can predict that the poet is talking about his own death. So the speaker believes that his death is close, and this just means that his life is drawing to an end. His end is nearing. Next 2 lines, and may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. Now to make you understand what the word bar is, I would need to explain you the concept of a sandbar. On my screen you can see several sandbars, right? So let me click on one of the image so it is very clear. Well, this is a sandbar. What is a sandbar? It's a geographical structure which forms around the mouth of a river or extends from a spit by slow disposition of sediments carried by current over millions of years. So the water inside, or maybe on the first part, is called the river, and the water outside is the open sea. So let's go back to the second set of lines. The speaker says, may there be no moaning, let there be no crying of the sandbar when I put out to sea. So let's understand this very clearly. We saw the picture of the sandbar, and here the poet uses sandbar as the symbol of death, with water inside representing his life and water beyond it representing afterlife. So putting out to sea means transitioning from the river of life into the sea, which is afterlife. So he says, in case if I die, let there be no crying. In very simple words, if I die, let there be no crying. So if I transition from river to the sea, from the sandbar which represents death, let there be no crying. Second stanza, let's start with the first 2 lines. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam. So in the first stanza, we already noticed how the speaker and the poet, none other than Lord Alfred Tennyson, is talking about crossing this bar. Now you understand the title very clearly, right? Crossing the bar. Now which bar? Well, this is the bar, and the poet wants to cross it from the river of life, which is on the left side, into the sea. So how does he want to cross the bar, which means how does he want to die? That's the poem all about. Let's go back to the poem. Second stanza says, but such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam. Now the speaker wishes here that when he dies, when he puts out to sea, Let it be like a silent ride which seems asleep as it moves. So he wants to ride silently. The speaker wants his death to be very smooth, like very calm and peaceful sea waves, which are too full for sound and froth or foam. In short, the speaker wishes that his death should be silent, smooth, and quick without making any fuss or noise. Moving on to the next set of lines, the speaker says, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Now, to explain these lines, you would have to understand some geographical processes. What happens is the water from the sea evaporates and turns into clouds. You must have studied this in your geography classes. The water from the sea evaporates and turns into clouds. Now these clouds bring rains, and that water enters into the river, and rivers again flow and pours back all the water into the sea. So it's a cycle. The water returns from where it came, and hence the speaker has written, turns again home. So the poet believes that a person comes from the sea and again mixes with the sea. So the words the boundless deep indicates the sea. In short, the next set of lines, the poet uses the example of river and sea to express the kind of death he wishes for himself. Moving on to the third stanza. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark. So if we go back to the first stanza, the poet started off with sunset, and finally now it's twilight. So it's the phase after sunset. So sun has already set in the third stanza, and twilight is in place, and the evening bells are ringing. So in British and Britain countries, there is a religious service in the late afternoon or evening where they ring the bell. It is also called Vespers. So at night they do this. So what the poet wants to convey is, now it is dark. Now there is no more light. There is nightfall. There is dusk. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark. So here the poet indicates and shows how twilight can be used to represent his state of life. Twilight stands for sadness, darkness, grief, which indicates the speaker's miserable and sad state before his death. Let's check out the next two lines. It says, may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. These lines are pretty easy. May there be no sadness, so let no one cry. Now the speaker has not mentioned about who should cry, the speaker himself or the people. Let's assume it's both. So the poet wants the people as well as himself to not be sad, to not cry when he dies. Now the death is indicated by the word farewell. So let no one cry when I die. So it doesn't say when I die, it says when I embark. What is the meaning of embark? To go on board. But how is it possible that the speaker is dying and he is going on board at the same time? Well, he is setting off to the sea. Let's go back to the first stanza, when I put out to sea. So he believes that there is afterlife, and when the speaker dies, there is another world waiting. So that's why he has written when I embark. These lines are pretty easy to understand. Let's move on to the fourth and the final stanza. For though from out are born of time and place, the flood may bear me far. Now it looks from the first, second and third stanza that by now the speaker has accepted the idea of death. He is ready for his death. The speaker knows that it's inevitable. Everyone has to face death. So now he says that he will be beyond the limits, beyond the boundaries of time and place, and the flood of death will carry him far away. The flood of death will transition him to a faraway place. The poet hopes to go to a place where there is no time, no place. And these lines clearly show that the poet believes in afterlife. Final lines of this poem. The poet says, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. You see the word cross. Now this is a little debatable. The first line is easy. The poet says, I hope to see my pilot face to face. So can you assume who the pilot could be? It's none other than God. Well, let me tell you that Lord Tennyson, the poet, had peculiar views on religion and God. He did not believe in Christianity at all. But in his works, if we observe, if you have read many of the other poems, you will see that he has many religious beliefs. So in this poem as well, the poet has given reference to a divine world, right? So he hopes to see God face to face. So after his death, he will be meeting God face to face. When I have crossed the bar, crossed can be considered as crossed. But you tell me, with whom does this word match? Obviously with Christ, right? So this is an allusion. What is an allusion? It is an indirect reference to something or someone. So the poet has used allusion to represent the crossing. The poem thus ends on a positive note, with the poet accepting the death and hoping to meet God after he has crossed the sandbar. Pretty easy poem, and if we summarize, we can just say that there is a metaphor used of crossing the sandbar to represent death in this poem, and it's very clear from all the stanzas that the speaker wants a peaceful death without any noise or fuss. To me, this is a very simple poem, just the placement of words is difficult. I hope you've understood the poem. If not, please mention it in comment section and I will be happy to help you. I thank you for watching and I hope you have a great day.